Gather close, my people. Yes, you, sitting there with your phone, your worries, your heavy heart. Put down your troubles for just a moment. I have a story to tell you. Not the kind that happened yesterday, not the kind that will happen tomorrow, but the kind that happens always, in every city, every village, every corner where the rich forget the poor and the powerful forget the powerless. This is the story of a girl named Grace. Not because she was born with grace, oh no, but because grace was the only thing she had left when everything else was taken away.
You're fired.
Life stories with the innocent. Stories just for you. Ancient wisdom for modern lives.
And this is the story of a king who dressed like a beggar to see if anyone would love him without his crown. You think you know how it ends? Good. That means your heart still works. Now, let us begin. In the heart of Lagos, no, it could be Accra, Nairobi, New York, anywhere the towers shine and the beggars hide, there was a hotel. Not a grand hotel, not the kind presidents visit, but clean, profitable, cold. And working in that hotel, on her knees, scrubbing tiles that would be dirtied again by evening, was Grace. Grace was 23 years old. She had the kind of beauty poverty tries to steal. Smooth skin stretched over tired bones, eyes that still smiled even when her stomach did not. But here is the truth, my people. No one saw her. Guests walked past her as if she were a shadow. Managers spoke over her, not to her. Other workers pitied her, but pity is not the same as friendship. Grace was invisible. And she was grateful. Yes, you heard me right, because Grace understood something most of us forget. The ones who suffer in silence are often the ones who survive the longest. She knew that visibility for people like her was dangerous. To be seen was to be judged. To be judged was to be found wanting. To be found wanting was to be discarded. So Grace kept her head down, her voice soft, her presence minimal. She became a ghost in a building full of people. And for 2 years, it worked. Every morning, Grace woke at 4 a.m. in a room shared with 7 other women. The walls were thin, the roof leaked when it rained, but the rent was cheap, and cheap was all she could afford. She walked 2 hours to work because the bus fare was the difference between eating and not eating. She worked 12 hours. She walked 2 hours home. She ate rice, sometimes with stew, mostly without. And before she slept, she thanked God. Some of you are laughing. Some of you are crying. Some of you are saying, why is she thanking God? For what? For suffering? Ah, but you misunderstand. Grace was not thanking God for her suffering. She was thanking him because her heart was still beating, because her hands could still work, because her mother had taught her, before the cancer took her, that gratitude is not about what you have. It's about remembering you're still here to want more. And somewhere, someone had it worse. This is the kingdom of the invisible, a place where the poor do not complain, because who would listen? A place where survival is victory. A place where people work themselves to shadows and call it blessing. And Grace? Grace was a queen in that kingdom. Not because she was powerful, but because she endured without bitterness. She smiled at strangers who never smiled back. She said good morning to people who did not know her name. She kept her soul clean in a dirty world. But every queen must face her dragon. And Grace's dragon wore a Hermes bag. Let me tell you something about cities, my people. They are built by the hands of the poor and enjoyed by the pockets of the rich. Grace scrubbed the marble floors of that hotel every single day. Her fingerprints were on every surface. Her sweat was in every corner. Her labor made the lobby shine like a jewel. But if you asked the manager her name, he would have to check the schedule. If you asked the guests, they would not even remember seeing a cleaner at all. This is the magic trick of wealth. It makes people disappear. Not with violence, not with chains, but with indifference. The rich do not hate the poor, you see. That would require them to see the poor. No, the rich simply forget. They forget that someone cleaned their room. They forget that someone cooked their food. They forget that someone's child went hungry so their floors could shine. Grace knew this, and so she moved carefully, quietly, like a mouse in a house full of cats. She did not complain. She did not cry, at least not where anyone could see. She simply endured. But endurance, my people, is not the same as weakness. Endurance is steel wrapped in silk. It is the tree that bends in the storm, but it does not break. It is the river that flows around the rock, patient, knowing that one day the rock will be dust and the river will still be flowing. And Grace? Grace was about to be tested. Her name was Beatrice Okonkwo, and when she walked into that hotel lobby, the very air grew colder. Not because of air conditioning, no. Because wealth, when it is worn like armor, chills everything it touches. Beatrice wore a white pantsuit so crisp it could cut glass. Her heels were red-soled Louboutins, shoes that cost more than Grace's yearly salary. Her sunglasses were Italian. Her perfume was French. Her accent was British, even though she'd never lived in Britain, because that's what money buys. The ability to pretend you're from somewhere better. Her attitude? Nigerian elite. That particular brand of cruelty that comes from having too much and believing you deserve even more. And on her arm, cradled like a newborn baby, was a Hermes Birkin bag. Not just any Birkin. A $20,000 crocodile skin masterpiece in ivory white, with gold hardware so shiny you could see your sins reflected in it. This bag, my people, was not just a bag. It was a statement. It said, I have arrived. You have not. Do not breathe near me. And Beatrice carried it like a crown, like a scepter, like proof that she was better than everyone else in the room. Grace, who was wiping down a glass table nearby, glanced up for only a moment. She did not stare. She did not envy. She simply noticed. The way a sparrow notices an eagle. The way prey notices a predator. And then she went back to work. But Beatrice noticed her. Not with kindness, not with curiosity, but with the cold, calculating gaze of someone who measures human beings by their utility. And in Beatrice's eyes, Grace was useful only if she stayed invisible, only if she remained nothing. Now pay attention, because this is where the story turns. Grace was serving water, just water, cold, clear, in a glass so clean it sparkled like diamond. She placed it on the table in front of Beatrice with the care of a jeweler handling precious stones. She stepped back. She bowed her head slightly, the way servants do. She turned to leave. And then it happened. One drop. One single microscopic drop of condensation slid down the side of the glass, rolled across the polished table, and landed on the ivory-white Hermes bag. The entire lobby froze. Time itself seemed to stop. Conversations died mid-sentence. Phones were lowered. Even the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. Because everyone knew. Everyone knew. Something terrible was about to happen. Beatrice shot to her feet like she'd been electrocuted, clutching the bag to her chest like it had been stabbed. Her face twisted into something ugly. Rage mixed with disgust, mixed with the pure, unfiltered fury of someone who has never been told no. And she screamed.
What? What were you thinking?
Not shouted, screamed. She demanded to know if Grace understood what she had done. Did Grace know what this bag was? Did she comprehend its value? Her voice was shrill, sharp enough to cut skin. She shrieked that this bag cost more than Grace's life. Grace stood there, trembling, her eyes wide with terror. She tried to apologize. Her voice was so soft it was almost a whisper. She said she was sorry, that it was an accident, that she would... But Beatrice cut her off. Sorry? Sorry doesn't fix crocodile skin. Sorry doesn't pay for luxury. And then Beatrice said something that made the entire lobby gasp. She told Grace to get on her knees, right there, in front of everyone. And Grace, because she had no choice, because she needed this job, because she had nowhere else to go, knelt. Her knees hit the cold marble floor. Her head bowed. Her hands trembled in her lap. But that wasn't enough for Beatrice. Oh no. Beatrice's voice turned cold, mocking, cruel. She told Grace she wasn't apologizing correctly. Not to her. To the bag. Yes, my people, you heard correctly. Beatrice made Grace apologize. To a bag. To an object. While a room full of people watched and did nothing. And Grace, with tears sliding silently down her cheeks, with her voice breaking, with her dignity shattered on that marble floor, whispered the words, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." To a bag, while a room full of people watched and did nothing. The manager appeared then, a coward in a cheap suit. He did not ask what happened. He did not defend his worker. He did not check if she was okay. He simply looked at Beatrice's fury, calculated the cost of losing a wealthy guest, and made his decision. He told Grace she was fired. Just like that.
No investigation, no questions, no mercy. He told her to leave immediately. And just like that, Grace's life shattered. Not because of violence, not because of crime, but because one drop of water touched the wrong piece of leather. This, my people, is how the powerful crush the powerless. Not with fists, not with weapons, but with indifference dressed as justice, with cruelty disguised as consequence, with a system that protects handbags more than it protects human beings. Grace walked. She did not cry, not yet. She walked through the streets of Lagos as the sun set and the city lit up like a carnival. Neon signs glowed, cars honked, lovers laughed, street vendors called out their wares, and Grace walked. But where was she going? Ah, my people, this is the part that breaks the heart. Grace had nowhere to go. The room she shared? She was 3 weeks behind on rent. The landlady had already threatened to throw her things into the street. Friends? She had acquaintances, not friends. People who nodded hello, but would not open their doors to a jobless girl with no prospects. Family? Her mother was dead. Her father, if he was even still alive, had abandoned them when she was 6. So Grace walked. And as the sun disappeared completely, as the city's lights grew brighter and its shadows grew darker, she found herself standing in front of a building. Landmark towers, 60 floors of glass and steel. The headquarters of the Oladele Corporation, one of the largest conglomerates in West Africa. Real estate, technology, manufacturing, telecommunications. If it made money, Oladele owned it. Grace stared up at that tower, at the glowing windows, at the people inside, working late, their silhouettes moving behind glass like actors on a stage. And she thought, that is a different world. A world where people wore suits instead of aprons, where they answered emails instead of scrubbing floors, where they were seen. But that world was not for her. It had never been for her. And now, standing there with nothing, no job, no home, no future, it felt further away than ever. So Grace did the only thing she could do. She sat down. Right there on the sidewalk, her back against the cold concrete wall of that tower. And she finally let herself cry. Not loud sobs, not the kind that draw attention, but silent tears that slid down her face like rain on glass. She cried for the job she lost. She cried for the humiliation. She cried for her mother, who had died believing Grace would have a better life. And she cried because she was so tired. People walked past her, dozens of them. Businessmen in expensive suits, women in heels, security guards, delivery drivers. They stepped around her like she was part of the sidewalk. Some glanced at her. Most did not. Because this is what cities do, my people. They teach us to step over suffering on our way to success. But then, something changed. Grace felt it before she saw it. A presence, a shadow falling across her. She looked up, wiping her eyes, and saw an old man. He was bent with age, his back curved like a question mark. His clothes were tattered. His feet were bare and dusty. His beard was long and gray, tangled like wire. But his eyes, his eyes, they were different. Clear, sharp, knowing. Not the cloudy eyes of the very old, but eyes that had seen things, eyes that understood things. He looked at Grace, not the way people usually looked at the poor, with pity or disgust or carefully practiced indifference, but the way you look at a person, a real person, someone who matters. And then he smiled. A small smile, sad, kind. And he sat down beside her. Not close enough to crowd her, but close enough to say, "You are not alone." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, two people at the bottom of the world, while the city roared around them. And then the old man reached into his tattered bag, a bag that had probably never cost more than 50 naira, and pulled out a small loaf of bread, the cheap kind, the kind you buy from street vendors. He broke it in half, and he offered one piece to Grace. Grace stared at it. She had not eaten since breakfast. Her stomach was a hollow ache. But she shook her head. She told him no. She said he should keep it, that he needed it more than she did. The old man's smile widened, and he said something Grace would never forget. His voice was rough, like gravel being stirred, but gentle, so gentle. He said, "My daughter, the measure of a person is not how much they have. It is how much they are willing to share when they have nothing."
And he pressed the bread into her hands. Grace took it, not because she was hungry, but because she understood, somehow, that refusing would be an insult, that this man, who had nothing, was offering her the most valuable thing in the world: dignity. They ate together in silence. The bread was dry, it scratched her throat, but it was the best meal Grace had ever tasted, because it was not given with pity, it was given with respect. When they finished, the old man stood slowly, his joints creaking like old wood. He told Grace to rest, that tomorrow was a new day, that the sun always rises, even when we think the night will last forever. And then he did something strange. He looked up at the tower, at the 60 floors of glass and steel looming above them, and he smiled again. But this time, it was a different kind of smile. Not sad, not gentle, but knowing. Like he knew a secret the whole world had forgotten. And then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd, just another invisible person in a city full of them. Grace watched him go, and then, exhausted beyond measure, she leaned her head against the cold wall, pulled her knees to her chest, and closed her eyes. She did not know that somewhere above her, on the 60th floor, in an office with walls made entirely of glass, someone was watching. She did not know that the old man who had shared his bread was already inside that tower, stepping into a private elevator, his tattered clothes falling away like a costume. She did not know that his name was not Old David at all, but David Oladele, billionaire, CEO, king. And she certainly did not know that in 3 days she would walk through the front doors of that very tower, and her life would never be the same again. But that, my people, is a story for next time.
Meanwhile, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more beautiful stories.
Find out what happened to Grace in episode 2.